Okay, so you haven't replied to your best friend in 3 months.
Right.
And it's not because you're mad. It's not even, because you're too busy, even though that's definitely the story you're telling yourself.
That's the go-to excuse.
It is. You
Hmm.
just haven't. And every time you even think about picking up your phone to do it, you get this really specific physical feeling. Your chest gets tight.
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
A micro flinch.
exactly. So instead of typing, hey, sorry, you open a new browser tab, you tell yourself, oh, I can't just send some generic text. I need to figure out the perfect thing to say. And then 45 minutes have gone by and you've been researching like a new email client.
And that right there, that's the moment of collapse.
Yeah.
We tend to see that behavior, the tab opening, as just, a simple failure of discipline.
Yeah, time management problem.
But it's actually something much, much bigger. It's the failure of an elaborate system you built for yourself.
That sounds so backwards, though, because my first thought is always, well, I failed because I wasn't organized enough.
Right.
I need a better system. A better app would have reminded me.
That's the default, isn't it? We think we need a better tool, a better routine. But the truth is often the exact opposite. When these productivity systems we build finally collapse, all that sophisticated strategy just evaporates.
And what's left?
You're left with the simple, frankly terrifying work you were trying to avoid in the first place by building that whole system.
That's a huge idea to kick off with, because we live in a world that just worships the system. Complexity is king.
Oh, absolutely.
If I have a calendar that's all color-coded, I feel like a functional human being. But you're saying that complexity might actually be the problem.
It's not just that it's not helping. In many cases, the complexity is functioning as a kind of armor. Think about it. It feels like you're making progress. It's visible.
It takes effort.
It takes a ton of effort. You spend 3 hours setting up a new project in Notion, and you feel exhausted. You feel like you've worked.
Oh, totally. I feel like I've crushed it for the day. I've got a dashboard to prove it.
But did you actually produce anything? Or did you just do meta work? The real function of that complexity is to shield you from doing the basic stuff that feels too simple to matter.
Like what?
Like actually naming what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Or having that one awkward conversation you've been putting off. We build the dashboard so we don't have to look at the mess.
Okay, I want to dig into this idea of complexity as armor, because I've definitely used organization to feel safe. I've spent whole days organizing a to-do list for a project I haven't even started. Why do we do that?
It all comes down to uncertainty. This is a really core concept. Complexity protects you from having to admit you don't know what to do next. A perfect example is the app migration cycle.
Oh, the productivity app drowning. I know this one well. You start with Notion, then you read some article about how Obsidian is way by for linking your thinking.
Yes, the promise that the tool will somehow do the thinking for you.
Exactly. So you spend a whole week moving everything over, then you hear about Rome, where you find a prettier template and go back to Notion. It feels like optimization.
It feels incredibly productive during that week, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself, is it really optimization? Or is it avoidance? The data really suggests we do this not because we haven't found the right app, but because finding the perfect system, it absolves us.
Absolves us. That's a strong word. It sounds like there's guilt involved.
I think it's accurate. If you're migrating your database, you have this valid professional-sounding reason for not writing the actual report. You can't be blamed for not producing anything if you're busy upgrading the factory.
Right.
It makes the procrastination legitimate.
I see. So the system is a shield. If I fail just using a pen and paper, that's on me. That's my fault. But if I'm busy building the perfect system, well, I haven't even started yet, so I can't be judged.
Precisely. And here's the ugly part. When you finally stop updating the system, when that armor falls away, what comes up? It's that original discomfort. It's the fear that you don't know how to approach the task. You'd rather research the best method for 3 days than just, attempt a bad first draft in 30 minutes.
Because a bad first draft is vulnerable. A complex system is safe.
Yes, it protects your ego. If you fail with the perfect system, you can blame the tool. But when you strip all of that away, you're left with the kind of work that doesn't need a system. The work you were avoiding because it felt uncertain.
So if complexity is the problem, what's the alternative? We can't just wing it, right?
Oh.
I need a calendar.
Of course, structure's good.
Yeah.
But the alternative to complexity as avoidance is what we could call the basic. And the basic is terrifying.
Why?
Because it's too simple. Start before you're ready. Write the bad first draft. Send the email that might have a typo. Make a decision without all the information.
See, even hearing that, it feels wrong. It feels sloppy. unprofessional, like I'm not doing my job properly.
It doesn't feel smart. And that is exactly why we build complexity. We want to feel prepared. We want to feel smart. But that preparation is usually just procrastination wearing a suit.
Procrastination wearing a suit, I love that. It looks sharp, but it's doing the same damage.
It might even be doing more damage because it burns so much energy. You're exhausting yourself building a maze just so you don't have to walk through a simple door.
Okay, so we're building these huge, complex things to avoid the simple stuff. This brings me to another key idea here, which is the buffer of consequences. It sort of explains why we let things get so bad.
This is a really crucial mental model, especially for anyone who thinks of themselves as high functioning.
Which is probably most people listening to this kind of deep dive.
Probably. Functional people are often living in a kind of delusion. They convince themselves that basics don't matter because they're optimizing for bigger things.
You hear it all the time. I don't have time for 8 hours of sleep. I'm building a company.
Right.
Or I can't call my friend back. I'm in the middle of a sprint.
I'll just skip a shower. I'm in a flow state.
Right. And the scary thing is, it works.
For a while.
For a while.
That's the buffer. There's a lag time between a bad decision and its consequence. You can neglect your body for a week, and it won't just shut down. You can ghost a friend once, and they probably won't cut you off. There's elasticity.
So we get this false confidence. We see the lack of an immediate disaster, and we think our strategy is genius. We think, see, I got away with it. I've transcended the need for sleep.
Exactly. You think you're operating on some higher plane where the normal rules of biology and relationships don't apply, but then the buffer runs out. And what we call rock bottom isn't some dramatic explosion. In this context, rock bottom is simply the removal of that gap.
The removal of the gap between your behavior and the result.
Yes. And all of a sudden, the friend isn't just a little annoyed, they're permanently distant. Your body isn't just tired, it's getting sick. Your inbox has 847 unread messages. Rock bottom is when the evidence is so overwhelming you can't explain it away anymore.
That's a really sharp definition. It's not a feeling, it's an undeniable reality. It's when the bill comes due.
It's a mathematical certainty. And that's when it hits you. All that sophisticated thinking was just a fancy way to avoid simple maintenance. And that is a very humbling moment.
Incredibly humbling, I imagine.
It is. Because the basics are not glamorous. Sleeping, eating real food, calling people back. That stuff doesn't get you a promotion. There's no framework for taking a shower. But when the consequences pile up, you realize that boring stuff was the foundation for everything.
And when we talk about those consequences, that anxiety, it shows up physically, right? We mentioned the chest tightening at the start, which brings us to this third concept, naming emotions to create a gap.
This is often the hardest part for logical, systems-oriented people because it feels useless. It feels like woo-woo nonsense.
Absolutely. If I'm drowning, the last thing I want to hear is name your feelings. My instinct when my chest is burning or my stomach is in knots is to run, to do something, check email, make a list.
Right. The default is to treat the feeling as a signal to work harder or distract yourself. But the basic solution here is to just sit down and name the feeling out loud. My chest is burning because I am anxious about this task.
The immediate pushback I feel is, okay, I said it, now what? The work is still there. That didn't solve a thing.
And that's the efficiency trap. You're looking for an immediate external solution. Naming the feeling doesn't solve the external problem. It does something much more important. It breaks the automatic cycle.
The cycle of feeling bad, which leads to avoidance?
Exactly. There's a concept called effect labeling. When you literally put a name to an emotion, you dampen the response in your amygdala, your fear center, and you activate your prefrontal cortex, your logic center. Before you name it, the chain is feel bad, distract, it's a reflex. But when you name it, I'm feeling dread, you create this tiny little gap between the feeling and your reaction.
And in that gap, you get a choice.
You get a choice. In that gap, you can say, okay, I'm anxious because I don't know how to start, I'll ask for help, or I'll break it down. Without the gap, you just react. You build more complexity to hide.
That is so true. I'll find myself suddenly reorganizing my entire computer file system. And if I stopped and asked, why am I doing this? The honest answer is, because I'm terrified of writing the first sentence of this script.
But admitting that is so unglamorous. Nobody writes a LinkedIn post about how they sat on their couch, admitted they were scared, and then did 5 minutes of work. It's invisible work. But it's the work that makes the elaborate avoidance system unnecessary.
So, okay, we've stripped away the complexity, we've hit rock bottom, we've named the feelings, now we have to fix it. And this part, this is the unglamorous nature of rebuilding.
This is the great anticlimax. The movie version of our life wants a montage here with an upbeat soundtrack. We want a brilliant stroke of genius that turns it all around.
We want to rise from the ashes. We want the breakthrough moment.
We crave it. But the reality of rebuilding from a system's collapse is taking a shower. It's sending that text that just says, I'm sorry. It's scheduling the dentist appointment.
It's so boring. It's just chores.
It is unbelievably boring, and that's an ego trap. Functional adults want credit for sophisticated thinking, for complex analysis. Nobody gives you an award for going to bed at 10 p.m. 7 nights in a row.
Congratulations on functioning like a biological organism should.
Exactly. There's no applause. And because it's not rewarding, we tend to relapse. This is critical. Why do people rebuild all the complexity the second they feel a little bit better?
Because the basics are boring to talk about. You can't tweet about getting enough sleep. It's not content.
That's a huge part of it. But it's also that once the crisis fades, the basics feel beneath us again. We think, okay, I'm showered, I'm slept, I'm caught up, now I need a system. We start adding layers again. A sleep tracking app, a new communication framework.
And the cycle just starts over. We get addicted to the feeling of optimization.
Precisely. We're addicted to the feeling of progress that complexity provides. But true, sustainable functioning is the willingness to just keep doing the boring stuff, even when you feel better, even when no one is watching.
That's a really important distinction. It's maintenance versus crisis management. You shower because bodies need cleaning, not because you hit rock bottom and can't stand yourself.
Exactly. You maintain friendships because they require ongoing effort, not because a crisis made you realize you're alone. It's a shift from being reactive to proactive.
It really sounds like there's no finish line, though, and I think that's what's so frustrating. I want to solve my life so I can get to the fun part.
That's the hard truth of it. There's no graduation ceremony. You never become so optimized or so successful that you get to stop sleeping, eating, or being honest with people.
I think that's the secret hope, though, isn't it? That if we get the system just right, we can automate the messy human parts of our lives.
We want to. We want to engineer our way out of vulnerability. But you cannot optimize your way out of needing a foundation. And the foundation is messy. It requires manual labor. You can't outsource the feeling of writing a bad first draft. You just have to feel it and do it anyway.
So if someone's listening and they're thinking, wow, I am drowning in my own complex system right now, what's the actual takeaway? Because just do the thing feels so frustratingly simple.
It is frustrating. But it's do the thing with a new understanding. The understanding that your resistance isn't a lack of a system. Your resistance is a fear of the mundane, a fear of imperfection.
It's facing the task without any armor.
Yes, when the complexity collapses, you're left with the simple work that was always there. The private, unglamorous, unrewarded work.
And the people who actually rebuild for good are the ones who just accept that.
They accept that the basics are not beneath them. They realize that a sophisticated strategy is useless if you're too tired to think.
It reminds me of that saying in sports that the most advanced move is just the basics, mastered.
In a way. But we have to be careful there, too. We can't turn mastering the basics into another complex system to track.
Right, another thing to optimize.
It's not about mastery. It's just about doing. It's about being okay with the fact that today the most productive thing you can do isn't building a Q4 roadmap. It's calling your mom and admitting you're stressed out.
That really brings it all back to that chest-tightening feeling, that friend you haven't texted.
That feeling is just data. It's telling you there's a gap. The complex solution is to wonder, what's the perfect thing to say? The basic solution, the real solution, is to say, I feel guilty, and then type, hey, I'm sorry I vanished, thinking of you.
And then hit send before you can overthink it.
Before the armor can come back up.
It's funny, as we talk about this, I can feel myself wanting to package it. To summarize it with a catchy acronym for everyone listening, the BASIC method.
See? It's an instinct. We want to turn the solution into another system.
We really do, but there is no package. It's just reality.
And that's the real challenge. To sit with the anticlimax. To accept that the solution to your overwhelming life isn't a new app. It's probably a nap and a difficult conversation.
And accepting that nobody's going to give you a gold star for that nap.
No applause.
Yeah.
Just the quiet satisfaction of actually functioning.
You know, this really reframes rock bottom. It's not a failure. It's just the moment the truth becomes unavoidable.
It's a moment of clarity. Painful, yes, but it's often the only time we stop lying to ourselves. The goal, of course, is to learn to stop lying before the buffer runs out.
To choose the basics before the crisis chooses them for you.
To maintain the car before the engine explodes.
Exactly.
And to stop looking for a mechanic who promises an engine that never needs an oil change. It doesn't exist.
This feels like it applies to everything. Work, health, relationships. We're constantly building these beautiful skyscrapers on quicksand and then wondering why they wobble.
And we blame the materials instead of the foundation.
So if we strip it all back, if we delete the apps and burn the lists, we're just left with a choice.
The choice to keep cycling between elaborate systems and rock bottom, always thinking this time the system will work,
Yeah.
or to accept that the basics are the work.
And that you're never going to graduate from them?
Never. You're always a human who needs sleep and connection and honesty.
It's a sobering thought, but also kind of freeing. I don't need to be a genius to fix my life. I just need to be willing to be bored.
Willing to be bored and willing to be human.
I think that's the perfect place to leave this. We usually end these trying to find the next big thing, but maybe the most provocative thought is to just look at your own life and ask, what elaborate system am I building right now just to avoid sending one simple text message?
And what would happen if you just sent it?